Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 1969. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm back across the pond, which I've been there several times this week, which is somewhat unique for me, the UK, with a special returning guest by the name of Barrie Wills. Barrie, welcome back to Cars Yeah. Do you have it in gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
Thank you, Mark. I most certainly am.
All right. It's so good to have you back. Now, when Barrie was on the show before, he was here to pitch a book that he had that we'll be talking about. He's got a second book that he just released, which is another huge piece of information about his life in the automotive sector. He was guest number 438. Now he's 1969. So there's been a lot of people between your last visit and your first visit. I didn't ask you this question before, but I'll ask you before I give you a proper introduction. What's one little thing that maybe most people don't know about you, Barrie?
I guess I work for someone else other than John DeLorean.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what this book is all about, because you worked for a lot of someone else's. I
did. A very eventful career.
Incredible career.
Very fortunate to have worked in 50 countries.
It's amazing. And that's what this book, and I want you listeners to know about this book, because the insights that Barrie brings in this book to the automotive sector, absolutely fascinating. So let me give you a proper introduction, and we're going to talk about your past here. Barrie Wills has spent over 50 years in the global automotive industry. His first book, John A., The DeLorean and Me, Tales from an Insider, is a unique look from the perspective of the longest-serving employee of DeLorean Motor Cars Limited. His tale focuses on the years during troubles in Northern Ireland when the production of the DeLorean took place. His newest book, though, is the sequel to his first book, and it's titled 45 Plus Years Without John DeLorean, and a little more. Barrie has worked for numerous automobile companies and countries throughout his life, and this book covers his amazing career working for over 50 countries throughout his career as well. This guy's been around the globe. So we'll be back in just a minute, but first a word from our sponsor, so give them a little listen, and we'll be right back. Hold on. Covercraft's newest 3-layer all-climate cover is especially engineered for moderate weather conditions, and it's treated with an extra UV-resistant formula. It's soft, it's breathable, and it's easy to store, all while pampering your paint, providing maximum UV, rain, and dust protection. If you live where it's windy, no worries. Simply add their gust guards for windy conditions to add extra protection to keep your cover in place. Your 3-layer all-climate cover is custom-tailored with Covercraft's attention to detail, form and fit with the quality and attention to detail that's been their tradition since 1965. Covercraft protects cars, trucks, motorcycles, RVs, trailers, and watercraft too. Every one of my vehicles is protected with a Covercraft cover. And I have a deal for you. Use the code YEAH21, YEAH21 at covercraft.com, and you'll get 10% off your Covercraft order plus free shipping. That's right. So get 10% off with free shipping by simply using the code YEAH21 at checkout. Covercraft, protecting the things that move you. When it was time to renew my collector car policy, my carrier raised my rates by a lot. But why? My usage was the same, my car's value was the same, and I had never made a claim. I didn't even have a ticket. The only change was their rate, and they had no reason why. What's with that? I researched my options, I spoke to others, and with American Collectors Insurance is where I now have my policy. What a difference. A live person actually answers the phone. She spent time learning about me and my Porsche Turbo, the one I call my Orange Crush, and provided a reasonable quote. American Collectors Insurance now protects my special ride. I'm saving hundreds of dollars, and I can sleep at night knowing my baby is properly insured. Why wait until your next premium is due? Give them a call today for your personal agreed value quote. Call 866-AC1-YEAH. That's 866-224 9324. Tell him you're a friend of mine, Mark Green at Cars Yeah. American Collectors Insurance, classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors, automotive enthusiasts just like you and me. That's American Collectors Insurance. So Barrie, now this new book is another blockbuster, I will say, because this is 453 pages. There's over 1,000 illustrations, and it really takes a deeper dive into this amazing career you've had. But before we got on the show here, you said something interesting to me. Of all the people that worked at DeLorean, you're the last man standing, right?
I am. Well, none of all the people worked for him, of all the operational directors.
Got it.
That ran the business in Northern Ireland. I was probably 10 years younger than the next youngest man. So, and astonishingly, I was still only in my 30s.
Wow.
When John hired me. Yes, I was 36 when John hired me.
Wow. This is amazing.
He must have been out of his mind.
I think he knew what he was doing. And you're going to be 80 years old in this coming New Year. Is that right?
I'm 80 in January.
In January. Yep. Well, happy early birthday.
I was born on Burns Night. Rabbie Burns, the Scottish poet.
I got it.
So I celebrate my birthday each year by eating the haggis.
Oh, God.
You ever eaten haggis?
I'm not a big fan. I'm sorry.
I adore it.
Yeah.
Of course, with tatters and neep.
Well,
tatters and neeps.
Yes, and maybe I didn't have it prepared properly.
No, I would cook it for you.
Okay.
You must get over.
Okay.
And, of course, Scotch to go with it.
Well, that will wash it down
That's
nicely.
An important ingredient, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about this new book because for you listeners, I'm going to read off just a little number of companies that Barrie has worked for. Jaguar, Kirstall Forge and Engineering, Leyland National Bus, Reliant, DeLorean, Lamborghini, Land Rover, Fiat, Lotus, Rover, Kia, Proton, Tianjin Auto, Aran, Codro, MG Rover. I mean, my gosh, you just can't keep a job? Is that the problem?
No, I gave up working for them and did contract for them, contracted with them. In later years. I spent 25 years working for companies that I was employed with, and another 25 years after I formed my own company, going out working on projects for them. So companies like Lotus I never worked for, but I ran a project for Lotus to bring a new car into production, for instance. I worked for Lamborghini running a cost reduction exercise on the Diablo. They tended to be projects like that. So, but it did take me around the world, and I certainly enjoyed the experience.
Well, certainly moss did not grow under your feet. That's for sure, because the plethora of companies that you talk about and share stories in this new book bring a great insight into the inner workings and the turmoil many times with companies. You know, those of us who don't work in these big automotive companies, you just kind of go, oh, they just make a car and it comes out. But you bring us a really interesting insight into the struggles, the challenges, what you've learned. I'm not even sure where to really start here. So what I want to ask you first and foremost is, primarily when you worked at all these different companies, were you somewhat of a guy to get things done, or a fixer guy, or were you just a wearer of many, many hats?
No, I think I became a guy that got things done. And sometimes I got things done in a way in which I did not win friends. I didn't suffer fools gladly, but we got things done. And that's why very often when companies were in trouble with a project, I was the guy they looked out for, brought in to sort out through the mess and get things back on the rails again and hit the target date.
Yeah, very difficult to do. So let's do this. I would love for you to pick a couple stories in the book and touch on the highlights of companies that you went into that we'll all know about, but things that you had to deal with. So I'll let you kind of cherry pick a couple that stand out. This book is so in depth and there's so much interesting information in it. So where would you like to start? Pick a mark that stands out for you?
I think perhaps one of the most interesting ones and the most significant ones is the project I did for Lotus. Lotus had back in I forget the years now, but they'd started a project to do a new Elan, a small sports car, two-seater soft top, that was of course part of a major part of their heritage. The project had been running for a number of years, but was drifting, and it was really going nowhere. It needed pulling together, and I got a call initially from Colin Spooner, who was their engineering director, who was very much the father of the new Elan. It was his baby, so he was very keen to make sure that it succeeded. It was him that asked me if I was prepared to free myself up and basically redo what they felt I'd done during the DeLorean program.
Now, was this the first generation Elan?
No, second generation.
Oh,
Elan.
So that was around late 80s.
M100, yeah, M100.
Okay, yeah, late 80s, early 90s.
Yes, that's right, yeah. No, I'm not that old.
I didn't put you there. I was just checking. You've been everywhere. You've done everything. So,
my fault for not remembering the year.
No problem.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I was asked, basically, of course, I'd done a similar job with DeLorean because I'd overseen the Lotus program that brought the DeLorean car through development and into production. I'd overseen Lotus's activity. So basically, Colin's question was, would you come in and do it again for us with our car? And it just so happened that he'd come at the end, right on the tail of a project I'd been working on for another illustrious character of the automotive sector, a guy called Malcolm Bricklin.
Oh, Bricklin.
I've been working, yes, Malcolm. I've been working with Malcolm down in Malaysia with Proton, and sadly, his project had come to a very abrupt end, and he'd left me with a very huge bad debt. So the opportunity to dive in to some immediate income was very welcome, and I was free. It just so happened I was free. So I dedicated 2 to 3 days a week to going into Lotus and beginning to get the program back on rails. I ran weekly meetings with all their senior directors of the various operational elements of the business connected with the Elan program, and they needed to be, because they were part of GM now, so they couldn't really be seen to fail. GM's dollars had gone in to make this program work, and they had to hit the date of the London Motor Show in November of that year, and production job 1 for January of the following year. And basically, that's what we hit. I opted out in January on the basis of job done. And as I say, I made a few enemies along the way. I made a lot of friends along the way. And friends like Colin Spooner, I'm still in touch with. And we still work very closely together all these years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Well, anytime there's a so-called outsider coming in to not only help but fix things that aren't going right, I can imagine you butted heads with some people that weren't happy to see you, but yeah. I'm sure somewhere in their heart realized we need somebody to help us here because we're not getting this figured out. Besides John DeLorean and the incredible time you spent with him, and we talked about, for you listeners, if you missed my talk with Barrie, you can go back and find his show on my podcast. And again, if you don't have his other book, you got to get your hands on that, and I'll put links to that in Barrie's show notes page here. But who is somebody that you've worked with over time, not John, but someone else, that you would consider a great mentor or a great influencer or an inspirational person? I'm sure there's probably a lot of them, but maybe one that stands out for our talk today.
Only very briefly, but a guy who I had a very great pleasure to work with for a short period of time who I found very, very inspirational, not least because of his achievements, was Zora Duntov.
Oh, wow.
The father of the Corvette.
Yeah.
I worked with Zora, in fact, during the DeLorean program, towards the end, when we worked together testing the turbocharged version of the DeLorean that was developed by a company called Legend Industries, that sadly never saw the light of day. Had it come about, would have been the fastest road car at that time.
Wow.
It's a great tragedy, one of the real tragedies of the DeLorean program, that the Legend turbocharged car never saw the light of day. But Zora and I spent a couple of days working together, test driving that car and socializing and getting the guy to reminisce, and that wasn't difficult, about his times at GM with the various people he'd worked with, was phenomenal. And I grew a tremendous respect for that man. And on my bookshelf I have his autobiography, or biography, I should say. I think it was written by someone else.
Wow.
Real character, a real character.
No kidding.
A real honor to meet him.
Yes, absolutely. One of those names that is just incredible in the history of the automotive trade. Is there another brand that you worked with, maybe kind of an outlier? Because when I read through the list of, and I mentioned earlier just some of them. I mean, you worked in Iran for Khodro. Is that how it's pronounced?
Iran Khodro, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you worked for all these different entities. One of those outliers that you worked for that you might share an interesting tidbit with us?
Well, I guess there's two really come to mind. One is Iran Khodro, which is pronounced Hodro. They don't pronounce the K for some strange reason. Iran Khodro. Working in Iran at that time, during the time of the Ayatollahs, of course, was an amazing experience and a very pleasant one. Tehran was a delightful place to be in. Walking through the streets of Tehran, free as a daisy. In those days, the ladies were not wearing, no, I beg your pardon, they were wearing
burqas and...
Yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But as soon as they got on the airplane to fly to the UK, it came off and the makeup came on. That's what I'm remembering, yeah. Yeah, that was an amazing experience, and we formed a very close relationship with the personnel in that company. I was part of a team working in Iran Khodro. We did a project to facelift a Peugeot that they were building at the time. Incidentally, they also, during the period I was working there, they were still building the original Hillman Hunter, which was the car that the Shah of Iran bought from what was the Roots Group that preceded Chrysler, that preceded Peugeot UK, that kicked off the Iranian car industry. And before we left Iran, they built their 2 millionth version of that car.
Wow.
Which it was staggering, yeah.
Yeah.
2 million cars of that model. Before they moved on to the, by which time Peugeot's influence had come in, and Peugeot's Franks were beginning to influence decisions. So they were producing a version of the I think it was the 405, and we did a facelift of it for them, and a re-engineering, which allowed them to meet European safety legislation of that time, so that they could sell into other Middle Eastern markets. They were keen to begin to export. So that's basically what the activity there was all about. The second interesting company and country was China. I mean, we discovered China before any of the major car manufacturers did. We spent years working in China. And one of our major projects was with a company called Tianjin Auto, or Tianjin. Pronounced Tianjin.
Yep.
Tianjin, if you look at a map, Tianjin is basically the port entrance to Beijing, and it's also the car capital, in that Toyota assembled there. You might remember you might have heard about, there was a major fire there about 10 years ago, and the whole of the stock of Toyota cars at the docks were destroyed by this fire.
Wow.
And yeah, it was quite something. Can't remember what caused the fire, but it was one of those things that hit the headlines at the time. But we were well before that, and we had a tremendous time working with them on a number of activities, basically helping them to improve their manufacturing methods and other day-to-day activities. I had, again, a small team of people working out there with them. I was inclined to be in and out, overseeing what was going on in that project. But it was a very eye-opening experience working with them. They were very easy to work with. We formed a lot of friends again. And, the only problem was keeping up with the name changes or names. They all seemed to be named Mr. Wu, Mr. Lu, Mr. Koo. I remember who was who.
Well, and look at where that country has come from then
Absolutely,
to now. It's
absolutely.
juggernaut.
Yeah. I remember slightly later being taken into China on a project, some Americans who thought they'd found a bus, an electric bus that they were going to take into the States from China and really prove a breakthrough. When we got out there, what we found was, to their shock and surprise, is that the bus was a Chinese copy of an electric bus that was being built in New Zealand and had been built in New Zealand for a number of years. So I'm afraid they weren't going to export it into the USA. That was a bit of a disappointment to them.
No doubt.
During that time, I remember being taken into a vehicle assembly plant, a Chinese vehicle assembly plant, where they were building, again, a Chinese copy of a Toyota people carrier, SUV.
Ah.
Yeah. You could really begin to see what was just around the corner. And it reminded me of something that I was told when I was working. Who was I working for this time? I was when I was working in Taiwan, working for a company called Yulong, who were related to Nissan. But I also came close to working for a second Taiwanese company called Yutian, who worked closely with Daihatsu. And there was a guy called Mr. Ye, known as Big Ye. Ye, and he was big, huge guy. Ye in Mandarin means big.
Oh, really?
So his name was Mr. Big.
Mr. Big. Wow. Sounds like an evil empire leader or something. Like Dr. Evil.
Yes. I remember him saying to me, Barry, he said, you guys started off the Industrial Revolution. The Americans came in and put some order to it. Okay. The Japanese came in next and produced quality. Next, it's our turn.
Yeah.
Those are the words I've carried with me over probably 30 to 40 years.
Well, and here we go. Absolutely. Yeah. We're going to take a short break for our sponsors, but we come back. I'd love to hear your perspective on some future things with automobiles. So keep that thought in mind, and we'll be right back. I've discovered Linkage. It's a new quarterly publication and website that covers the automotive market, driving, restoring, collecting, and discovering your passion for motor vehicles. Linkage is about experiences, opinions, and values. Linkage is an actual informed, reasoned opinion based on first-hand experiences. A talented Linkage team covers the automotive world, the people who share your passion and mine, smart, considered, rational, and experienced opinions, ones you can learn from and grow. That includes our passion that drives auctions and the collector car market. So come with me and join us on this journey. And be sure to use the code CARSYEAH when you subscribe, and they'll give you $10 off. Boom! Linkage, geared for the automotive life. Subscribe today at linkagemag.com. I'm honored to say that my charity of choice here at Cars Yeah is Tech Force Foundation. They help young people find an education and career that aligns with their passions. For those who love cars, problem solving, and working with their hands, a career as a professional automotive technician is the perfect fit for a fulfilling life. We're all wired differently, and not every successful career demands a 4-year university. Technical education and the skilled trades matter, and we need qualified, skilled technicians to keep our vehicles rolling. Learn more about how you can support tomorrow's driving force and workforce of technicians at techforce.org, like I do here at Cars Yeah. So, Barrie, we're back. I would love your perspective, and you made a nice segue with Mr. Big's somewhat ominous predictions of the future, which have certainly come true in many ways, about how you see the automotive business sector in the future. And let's start with EVs, because this has been coming on super fast. I'd love your perspective on how you see that part of the industry growing, let's just say, and I know the crystal ball can be foggy, but let's just say for the next 5 to 10 years of where you see the electric vehicles going.
Yeah, I'm not convinced by electric vehicles at all. No, I mean, they're here and they're going to happen. The Chinese particularly are making them happen. There's no doubt about it. But I'm not sure that it's the future. I think the future is more likely to be hydrogen. And I'm very aware of the fact that if you go back a few years, it was Toyota who kicked things off with the hybrids. And that has led through to electric vehicles. I'm very conscious of the fact now that Toyota seem to be putting their money into into hydrogen. And that, I think, demonstrates a lot in my view. So I'm in the hydrogen camp, and that's where I think the long term is more likely to be taking us.
I've had some guests on the show that are saying the same thing. And I had a guest recently on the show that worked for Ford Motor Company in their diesel division for decades, 35 plus years. And he said the same thing. He said, everybody seems to be pushing EVs, but that seems to be driven a lot by political ideology as well. But he said reality is we can't do that.
Exactly.
And he mentioned hydrogen. He mentioned other types of alternative fuels. Yeah. And I believe his words were, if you gave everybody in the world an EV car tomorrow, you gave it to them. Yeah. It wouldn't work.
Yeah, we ain't got enough electricity.
Not enough electricity, not enough power stations, not enough. It just wouldn't work for everybody. So, I find that very interesting. Aside from that, what do you think are the biggest challenges for automobile makers in the next, say, 10 years?
China is the biggest challenge of all for the established car manufacturers.
And in what way?
Well, because they seem to have their hands on everything. They are certainly pushing the barriers in terms of exports now, and I think we'll find them entering other markets pretty quickly. Some of their vehicle manufacturers are already there. Yeah, I think the Chinese are the biggest threat to the rest of the vehicle manufacturers in the world. As far as other threats, it's difficult to answer that one. I think, overcoming the fallacy that the world's politicians have that EVs are the answer to everything. They're not.
I would agree with you from what I've learned from my guests. What's the most interesting automobile manufacturer that you see working today? Why would that be?
See, working today?
Yeah, the most, who is, let me rephrase it better. Who's the most interesting automobile manufacturer that you see in today's market?
Tesla.
Tesla, yeah, me too. Yeah.
Well, I see John DeLorean in Musk. There's so many similarities. They're both completely crazy people. Both with seeing objectives that in their mind are done before they've even started the work. I thought the idea up, it's done. And then you get somebody else to implement it for you. And I'm a great admirer of Elon Musk. I mean, how can you fail? How can you fail to be? I mean, it isn't just automotive, is it? You know, look at the things he's got his hands in. But no, the Teslas, I think are terrific. Even though they're electric, I forgive him that.
I like it. Well, I noticed yesterday I saw that Time Magazine made him their Person of the Year. And not that I hold much credence to Time Magazine anymore. However,
well, they had John DeLorean as Man of the Year as well.
Well, they did. And, you know, I think different times, of course, but it seems like some of the people they've been picking in the last decade, I'm like, come on, can't find anybody better than that. But yes, I would agree. Elon Musk, his vision.
Yeah.
I've always said, if I could spend just an hour in his head, I wonder if I could survive. You know, because he's a Steve Jobs. I mean, he's just one of these magical people that just, it's fascinating to me. And whether you like Teslas or not, whether you like EVs or not, you have to admit he's done amazing things. Yeah.
Yes, you've got to admire him.
Yeah, you have to just a little bit.
So, and of course, he started with a Lotus.
Yes, that's right.
It was a conversion of a Lotus Elise. Yeah,
the Elise, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. I remember those. I remember seeing those cars at Pebble Beach during Car Week before he was even really involved very much, you know, the first ones there, and going, well, this is kind of interesting, but where are you going to get the power? And, you know, this was 15 years ago. So, yeah.
And of course, he sent one up to space.
I know it's still out there. You know, that guy sitting in that car is still listening to Elton John sing Rocket Man over and over and over. Yeah. Yeah, it is. But it's fun. I think the world needs more people like that.
I do.
Well, I'm really excited that you came back on the show and shared this new book. Again, for you listeners, the book is titled 45 Plus Years Without John DeLorean and a Little More. I'll put a link to this new book on the show notes page here. It's published by our friends at Woodbine Publications, correct?
Correct.
And the best place to get their hands on this book, is it at woodbinepublications.com?
There's a website, www.woodbinepublications.com.
Absolutely. And you had John Griffiths, who was formerly with the Financial Times, as the foreword to this book, right?
He wrote the foreword. I'm very flattered. My first book had the foreword written by the great Ed Lapham of US fame, and John, I was very flattered and thrilled that he agreed to write the foreword for my second book. Yeah, two real stars.
Well, you're a real star in my book, Barrie, because you brought this insight of a career that is just absolutely mind-boggling to me. How many companies you had your hands in and how many things you've done. And the fact that you've written this book and you've brought this for us car enthusiasts forward to get glimpses into these windows that we would never know about, we would never see, is absolutely fascinating. So I can't thank you enough for bringing this book to us.
Oh, it's been a real pleasure chatting to you again, Mark. I've enjoyed it again. And if there's one or two people out there who want to subscribe to buying the book, then you know, the small cents are welcome.
Absolutely. This is a book that you automotive enthusiasts really need to have in your automotive library, if you will. I'm going to do something kind of fun with you today, Barrie. I'm going to allow you to pick any vehicle in the world. I'm going to give you this vehicle, and you can be going anywhere in this vehicle with anybody, even somebody who's deceased, and you can have fun, have a conversation with this person. That's the magic that plays here at Cars Yeah. So let's start with, what vehicle can I give you today?
Oh, Jaguar E-Type.
Ooh, okay, there we go. And
the very first car I ever worked on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as a young apprentice at Jaguar,
wow,
I was very privileged to sit next to a guy, and that's basically all I did. I sat next to learning whilst he purchased the components for the Jaguar E-Type.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I saw that car evolve and lived with it. You weren't allowed to see it in those days unless you were one of the development engineers working on it. But when we did see it, oh boy, what a revelation! You know.
Oh.
So yeah, a Jaguar E-Type.
Okay.
As to the person, I think maybe I'd like to spend that time with John DeLorean.
Kind of thought you'd say that.
And just catch up, I'm involved in writing a book of fiction at the moment. It's a new idea. I find it very difficult to write fiction because it's so different to writing what effectively are memoirs. I've got a guy doing the major work, and I'm supporting him, who has written quite a bit of fiction. And the fiction is all about what happened had DeLorean survived, what came next. And I think sitting there in a car for that period of time with John would help me develop that book.
Well, my son is writing his first book. He's 28 years old, and a book of fiction. And he's visiting for the holidays here, and he is saying the hardest part of writing fiction is you can do whatever you want.
Yes.
And that opens up, I have to decide what street is the guy walking down, what is he wearing, and where is he going, and what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And you can do whatever, but you got to think way ahead. So
and sometimes fiction starts at the end.
Well, he said the same thing. So maybe I should put you together with him to give him some advice. I love the idea of the Jaguar E-Type. I love being with John. So let's pick the final part of this is where would you love to be driving in that Jaguar? You've been all over the world, so you've seen so much.
But there's one particular drive I did in the USA, and it's that drive down in California.
Okay.
It's got a name.
Would it be the Pacific Coast Highway along the coast?
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh,
that's the one.
Highway 1.
That's Highway 1. Highway 1, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Highway 1, yeah.
Okay, well, I've done that drive many times. I did that drive.
Something I've never done.
No, well, you got to come over. Well, you got to come over. Maybe we could do that together. That would be fun.
Well, when this lot's over, I aim to.
Yeah, my son, when he was 8, I bought a 550 Spider. It was a replica of a 550 built by a past Chuck Beck, who's been a past guest. And we drove that car all the way from Long Beach, California, back up to Gig Harbor, 1,500 miles. It had no top, no radio, no heater, literally a little race car is what it is. Yeah. And that was a great drive. I've done many drives on that coast. I even rode my bike down Highway 1. So I think that would be pretty fun with John and Barrie. Reminiscing. Well, you let me know when this new book gets done. We'll have have you come back and talk about it. This has been so good to catch up with you. Now, if you could give us some parting words of wisdom from the wealth of knowledge you've learned throughout your life, is there maybe a little success quote or some kind of saying you could share with us?
Yeah, I'd recommend to any young man starting in the industry to pick yourself a mentor. Pick yourself a mentor, make sure he's the right one, and listen to him.
Yeah. Observe
him, because you learn so much. I've been so fortunate, particularly in my early days, starting work in the Jaguar that was still being run by Sir William Lyons, the founder.
Wow.
Sir William only ever spoke to me once. But I shall relish those words for the rest of my life. He opened the door of my little office, which was the size of a broom cupboard, and said the immortal words to me, "Would you mind switching the lights off when you get home, young man?" Those words were not inspirational, but it was the company that Sir William created, the people within it who got things done for him, that I was able to sit next to as a 17-year-old kid.
Wow.
And learn from.
Wow.
And use as a mentor. I had two major mentors within Jaguar who taught me so much. A guy called Stanley Parks and a guy called John Macmillan. And those two men both have photographs in my book. And I thank them for the fact that they taught me more than anybody in my early days.
Wow.
So grab a mentor and learn from them.
Great words of wisdom. Barrie, this has been wonderful. Again, listeners, the name of the book, 45 Plus Years Without John DeLorean, and a little more by the great Barrie Wills. Barrie, thank you so much for spending some time with me. We're just a few days away from Christmas, so Merry Christmas to you, my friend.
Merry Christmas to you too.
Here's to a very happy and healthy 80th birthday coming up in January.
Thank you.
And here's to a very healthy year for all of us, because boy, we could sure use it.
We certainly could, Mark, and thank you again for giving me the honor of being your guest, and I just hope that your listeners have enjoyed a few of the words, if not all of them.
No doubt. Absolutely. Pleasure's been mine, Barrie. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.